30 липня.
30th of July, Media Center of Ukraine is here. My name is Svetlana Chiparenko, and we have a presentation of the study Social Unity of the Ukrainian Society that was prepared by the civil network OPORA. And today with us Anastasiia Romaniuk and Olha Snopok. They are analysts at the civil network. Please tell us, first of all, why did you decide to study this particular question? Thank you for the question, and thank you to accept us today. And returning to the study, first of all, I think it's not a secret for anybody that Ukrainian unity is very important both domestically and outside of the country. It's something that everybody is thinking about. Why? Because on the 24th of February 2022, it was a feeling like the mutual help and protection. We became interested into this. We were interested by this metaphorical unity. We wanted to, first of all, understand ourselves what was that, and to answer the question how united we are, how cohesive we are on the third year of the full-scale war, and also to evaluate maybe not by feeling, by just the discourse, but also by some data. Well, by my feeling, I think the unity is still here, and I think it's also getting reinforced, and also that the protests that happened near the Franco Theater, we have seen this already during the two precedent revolutions, but let's return to your study and see what are the insights, what trends are there. Thank you. So, in order to start this conversation, it's kind of boring a little bit, but the introduction is necessary. So, what was important for us is to formulate this unity, this cohesion, and to approach this phenomenon. We addressed a social notion as a order of things in society when its members can and do work together on horizontal and vertical levels in their local communities with government representatives. And the important elements of this unity is, and maybe even preconditions for this unity. People feel that they belong to the society that they live in. They feel full-fledged members of this society and trust each other and trust the governmental bodies, and also they have this evaluation of themselves inside this picture. And in order to evaluate the level of the unity, we conducted the study that is composed of a few stages, and it's about quality and quantity. I will talk about quantity from the methodology point of view. We posed this problem before ourselves. How united are we on a national level? And that's what we asked 2,400 respondents in Ukraine and 400 in the European Union. We did not combine these samples, and it will be interesting to see their interpolation. So what did we find out? Well, first of all, we cannot characterize or qualify such a complex phenomenon as unity as a number, as a value. And so the acts of social belonging and after examining which factors can be applied to the situation, we came to a conclusion. One of the conclusions was that on the social level, the cooperation of people on the social level is quite high, and so we have a high unity level on a social level, on the horizontal level. And also we see a quite high interest in politics. However, it's not that high, and it's not, unfortunately, it's not expressed in decisive actions in terms of political activities. Like, for example, what we are seeing, whatever we are seeing right now with the protests, I will explain it later. It's a little bit different. Also, from the point of view of the media, one of the threats, the potential threats, are the decrease of level of belonging, which happens because of the low level to the media, low level of trust to the media. We also see economical vulnerabilities right now, and even some level of deprivation in this context. What does improve our unity? Well, first of all, these are the relations on the horizontal level, and in our study we have calculated the index, the rate of social inclusion, which is expressing if respondents can feel that they are in control of their life, if they feel like they're important, if they are needed in the society. And these are things that we include into determining if a person is invested in terms of their time or resources into kind deeds, or some deeds that are done in unity with the community. So 74% of this index shows 74%, which means that 74 out of 100 feel trusted in their respective communities. And if we compare it with the people that are now displaced, that are abroad, we can see that they are a little bit less sure that they can control their lives. However, they're still high, and when we return, let's return to the feeling of belonging and self-confidence within the context of their communities. So this is namely the index of self-identification. So if we compare this study with the studies of our colleagues, we see this tendency that the general national identity outweighs everything else. And like, for example, if you ask what are you, most people will answer they're Ukrainian. It's 89.2, and the same goes for the people that stay abroad right now. It's 82.4, and around 17.3 and 24.1 accordingly are proud to be Ukrainians. And this is actually a quite high indication. This is a quite high number, and the feeling of belonging to the Ukrainian nation. When we talk about the Ukrainian identity, the majority feel themselves as Ukrainians, The next logical question is, what actually does it mean? And that's what our respondents say when we asked this question. So we decided to outline this picture to see what are the components of the Ukrainian identity. First of all, we see that there is no dominating image or narrative about the national identity exists in Ukraine. It's not formed completely yet. And that's why these numbers are around 54.8. 65%. However, it is prone to change, and another factor that we see is that there is a significant gravity to the civil identity, like, for example, formal criteria, as we call them, to be born in Ukraine, to be a citizen in Ukraine, to be of Ukrainian descent, or, you know, like the things that Russians like to abuse. So this means the least for the respondents that were answering our questions. Around 20% of respondents chose the questions of their origin as their important thing. What's actually is important for Ukrainians is to be a part of a society, to support the armed forces of Ukraine, to respect the governmental institutions, to pay taxes. And also, it's turned out that for our respondents, it was very important, the cultural belonging, the cultural landscape, and the majority of the respondents want they called important such things as having access to Russian culture, both Russian and Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian culture being in the lead, and when we were doing this study abroad, we found out that there was no significant differences in the landscape of cultural belonging. During our interrogation, we have seen that the level of mutual help, mutual aid was quite high as well. More than 85% of Ukrainians inside the country and 87% abroad. They helped somebody during last month. That's what they mentioned.
So we've given them a set of options, whether you've donated to the armed forces or those affected by the Russian aggression, or have you ever consulted helping your the people around you in solving certain problems that are not part of your professional activity? Did you provide things or food to those in need? So basically any acts of mutual help. And we've seen that this indicator among Ukrainians is pretty high, both inside Ukraine and abroad. Also, let me explain such a structure as relative deprivation. In sociological terms, it means that, first of all, the sociologists and at the level of the media and at the level of political comments, when the Ukrainian society is being characterized very frequently, you can hear that the Ukrainians are used to paternalism, the heritage or legacy from the Soviet Union, like an average Ukrainian is used to accusing someone else of their problems and to wait that someone else has to give them something, like the state owes them something or something like that. So this sociological term of relative deprivation means that people are deprived when they feel that they under-receive what's owed to them. Either it's their God-given right or their merit, and relative deprivation means that people not only under-receive what's owed, but they even receive less than those around them. It's not like I was deprived, but I was deprived even more than my neighbor was. So we decided to double check whether we still observe this phenomena among our respondents, and this deprivation level is not so widespread probably. So we were asking additional questions. Did you have any additional opportunities to get a job you wanted or a level of education? Did you have equal chances with those around you when it comes to social services, comfortable life? And we've seen that more than a half of the respondents, more than 60% of the respondents in both Ukraine and abroad responded yes, that they were getting everything they had to receive. And now let's proceed to the risks. First of all, we're seeing quite a negative picture when it comes to economic dimension, and first of all, it's expressed in the phenomena when half of the respondents have paid job, and it was always given rise to additional questions in professional circles, but again, some of the respondents may already be retired or be supported by their relatives fully. Some may not have paid job because they do home errands or they take care about other family members, etc. Also, we've seen 1/3 of the respondents say that in case of the loss of source of income, they wouldn't be able to cover even their basic needs. And why those questions are important for us? Probably when people feel those economic difficulties on a systemic level, it may reduce their planning horizon. When it comes to personal life, people may start feeling more vulnerable, like, let's see what tomorrow brings. Planning ahead is absent very frequently, and under conditions like that, people who have higher level of economic vulnerability, very frequently for them investing on a systemic level into long-term things, it can be seen as some action that doesn't justify an effort invested when you don't have this planning horizon. Like, why would you invest in the future when you don't see it? And it's obvious that people who have more complicated economic situation, they generally have less force to cover the needs of themselves and their family. What else could we see? That the vulnerable categories of Ukrainian population feel even more difficulties, and we've seen that only a quarter of those respondents with disabilities have paid jobs, which is a lower indicator than overall national. And among people with disabilities, 40% responded that they won't be able to cover their basic needs if they lose the only source of income and other proceeds they're getting, like social payments. Also, we were asking the respondents how stable are their life conditions. For example, if the majority of Ukrainians have their own housing, and if they use someone else's housing, then, for example, among internally displaced persons, this situation is cardinally different, and the level of difficulties with housing is way bigger. Also, among the risks we're seeing, there's a lot of vulnerabilities at the media level. So basically, the respondents were mostly saying that they either don't see such people as themselves in the media, or that even when they see them, still the experience of the people like them is not reflected properly in the correct way. Also, the level of trust in the media that people consume, and it's important that we were not asking by different types of media. We were just curious whether the people trust those news that they consume, no matter what they are. And we've seen that for the respondents in Ukraine, the level of trust is well, only 50% of the respondents trusted the news they read, and this indicator is a little bit bigger abroad, almost 60%, and also 11% of the respondents absolutely don't trust any news whatsoever, and about 1/5 of the respondents abroad don't trust the news. And also we've seen a relatively high level of a self-censure. About 1/3 of respondents in Ukraine said that based on their experience, they were reserving themselves from being outspoken publicly because of the fear of being judged or misunderstood or not understood, so they better just don't speak. Among the respondents abroad, this indicator reaches the figure of 50% that may, in long-term perspective, create another risk that may reduce the level of our social cohesion and cooperation, which is important during the full-scale war with Russia at all levels: kinetic war, information warfare, constant and continuous information attacks on part of the enemy. It may create additional threat of influence by the enemy. And I'll skip a couple of slides. Also, we've seen that the level of vertical trust is also relatively low. We've seen that the highest indicator of trust in government institution is enjoyed by the armed forces of Ukraine and the president of Ukraine. Still, it's important to mention, to remind the listeners and spectators that the survey was taking place in May. Say, if it would have happened yesterday, I'm not sure the indicators would remain the same. But we've seen that the trust in such institutions as courts, government, parliament, local authorities is very low, because only just in the following sequence, as I've mentioned, they are only being trusted by from 5 to 30% of the population. So the biggest is the trust in central authority, and at the quality level we were trying to focus. At the quantity level, we've drawn the overall national picture. At the quality level, it was interesting for us whether there are existing barriers for potentially vulnerable categories of population, and Olga will cover it in better detail. Thank you, Nastya, for the great presentation of the first part of our study. And as we were just starting to work on this project from the very beginning, we were planning to build it at 2 levels. First level is what Nastya has said, the social cohesion. And at the second level, we've decided that we need to go a little bit deeper and to study the vulnerable categories, to see what may be the obstacles, the barriers for their participation in the social and political life. And basically, we've picked a number of groups like that: Ukrainians abroad, IDPs, veterans and the members of the families of the military, and people with disabilities. We've thought that those are the groups that may theoretically have the biggest obstacles, the biggest barriers against taking part in social and political life. And to do this, we've conducted 16 expert interviews, 12 focus groups, 6 to 8 participants each, and basically using the same barriers, the same topics that Nastya has covered: media, political dimension, economical dimension. We've decided to delve deeper and to see what's going on with those people who are the most vulnerable to what's going on around them. And basically, among those barriers, there was subjective solitude. I'll explain what it means later. Also, we were looking at bias and stereotypes, economic, political, social, and media dimensions, and we've added another dimension of interaction with the state. So a little bit in detail, what we've seen in all those dimensions and those barriers. And the first barrier I would like to say is a subjective solitude. What do we mean by subjective solitude? Is when a person just don't feel themselves a part of the society, a part of the community. It's when they feel themselves redundant and necessary, that other people don't understand them. And we wanted to find out whether those vulnerable categories of population have that feeling emanating from people around them. And in fact, unfortunately, representatives of all of the groups that we were surveying, they've said that they have this feeling of solitude, that no one ever understands them. For example, Ukrainians abroad, they were saying that they feel that those who stay in Ukraine and them, they live in different realities. Ukrainians in Ukraine, they have extensive challenges, explosions, challenges, power shutdowns, but at the same time, Ukrainians abroad, they have their own challenges like job search, language barrier, a huge barrier for them, and they understand that both experiences are important, but it's difficult for them to find understanding with the Ukrainians who stay in Ukraine. In the same way the Ukrainians were saying, when then they come back from the front lines, it's difficult for them to talk to the civilians because they feel that gap. And they say that sometimes they are even being irritated by their conversations with the civilians, because those conversations that the civilians have at the they're not so important comparing to what the guys experienced in the front lines. And sometimes the people were sharing stories. For example, as they ride public transport, people around them, they could see that they could have disability and they don't yield the seat. It could be a minor thing, but you can feel that those people around you, they don't appreciate you and they don't need you. And what's important to mention, this subjective alienation, that it may arise not only at the horizontal but also at the vertical level, not only in process of interaction with other people, but during interaction with the government. And actually the respondents were saying, yeah, they feel this type of alienation, exclusions. The Ukrainians abroad, they were describing the situation when they approach some government authority, some government office for some documents, and there they meet either indifference or they may be told, like, what are you even doing here? You're okay over there. Why have you come? And the IDPs, they say that they don't feel support on part of the government, that they feel themselves almost one-on-one with their problems. The veterans were saying that
veterans told us that they have fear that that state will no longer support them, that they feel this subjective alienation, and this is in the reality these things have real consequences, and this feeling of alienation, of exclusion, it leads to stopping people from communicating with other people, and then that expresses in some topics becoming taboo in society, and this is quite a negative trend, I would say. Another component that we studied were the stereotypes, and why we covered this component. That's because stereotypes are the one of the reasons why people cannot take part in the socially active life, and it not only does it lead to this, but also creates more risks during other aspects of everyday life, and the representatives of almost all our groups that were studied, they have met some kind of a misunderstanding from the side of foreign citizens. And the tension between different social groups, we have found out that the civil portion of our society and the military personnel have biases against prejudices against each other, and these stereotypes are quite spread, and it's, for example, about how these and that portions of our society have access to the education, governmental services, some kind of benefits, and so on and so on. And what I personally was stricken by is that one of the person when describing their experience with the governmental bodies, one of the person was saying that they were addressed in the third person, like they were not even there, and this of course does insult people. It makes them feel bad, and when there is no personal communication, that's what we deem one of the reasons for such a situation, is the lack of communication between the civilians and the military, between the and veterans. And what is encouraged usually, there is experience. For foreign experience tells us that efficient solution for that would be some kind of joint platforms where people could actually talk to each other. We're talking about the Ukrainians abroad. We are talking about the displaced people and people abroad, and those displaced internally. They say they are capable of avoiding, this kind of attitude towards them if they are inclined to do so. However, on the part of the veterans, the picture is somewhat different. They cannot avoid social situations where they feel alienation. So the third block of obstacles in taking part in a social and political everyday life. Well, as I said, the economical component of our everyday lives starts with economical initial basis, and where we see the biggest deformation of the adequate coverage of services available for people is in the group of people with disabilities. They have the most the biggest they feel the biggest obstacles towards their everyday lives in social environments, and their biggest problem, what they named, is the unemployment. When we're talking about the internally displaced people, we must take into account the specifics of these or that groups from that bigger group. It depends from case to case. For example, if a person is technically educated, they don't find it really hard to find a new job abroad. But there is a lot of veterans abroad or domestically, veterans, even those veterans that have a higher education, they said that before full-scale invasion they had business, which they have lost while serving their country, and now they cannot restore those businesses. And there is no programs, there is no governmental programs for that. Regarding people with disabilities, what's being said during the conversations with those people is that the employers are making excuses to not take them to work, making different kind of about education or absence of necessary qualifications. However, this is not the case in many times. This is not the case, is what the respondents told us. And let's return again to the fact that they cannot find the good work with good salary, with good with possibility to rent a good living quarters. And the problem is that the problem here lies mostly in the fact that there is no mechanisms to cover the kinds of damages and losses that they sustained. And another question in this context is that one of the biggest complaints in the group of the people with disabilities is the very low governmental aid and low salaries at those jobs that they're capable of finding and getting at. And when people, if Ukraine's government does not pay attention to these problems, they may aggravate with time. So the veterans, both veterans and displaced, internally displaced people, it's more or less within normal indicators. The biggest problem as of right now is that the Ukrainians that are right now in the when we're talking about the fourth block of the obstacles, it's the political inability of political participation of the people that are abroad of Ukraine, and there is nothing we can do about it, and that they cannot influence the life of the community that they are no longer part of because they left the country and are not able to come back for a while now. And this obstacle is also, of course, is felt among the people with disabilities. There is a lot of informational obstacles, we were told. Like, for example, people simply So, for example, even something simple like an internet site with the possibility for the people with a bad sight to read their political programs, or some kind of things that are related to their disability. It's not. They don't feel like somebody is thinking about them or their problems at all. And the fifth barrier is the media presence of each of the social groups that we studied. What it means? It means how they feel, how people feel they are being described or given, or their profession, respective professions are being described in the media, and what the image of them is in the media. So in this case, respondents in their majority answered that they don't feel like they are fairly represented in the media, and their presence is sufficient in the media. And it was also they also answered that they feel that during the recent time the attention from the media towards their social groups has decreased significantly. So apart from that, when asked what they hear in the media about themselves as about the group, a social group, they say that they hear that their social group is successful. They are showing in the media, they are showing the success stories mostly, which does not represent fairly the state of their affairs in reality. And let's say the people that are already known, that they have a feeling that the people that are already known still benefit from being present widely in the media, while they do not have those benefits or did not have them initially. So, like an example, people named some kind of bias from the part of the media when representing some kind of events. They felt it was overly romanticized or overly heroicized, and or were based on negative emotions too much. As well as the dramatization in their opinion, in our opinion, is a negative phenomenon, because it makes it is making people sympathize with other people on the wrong basis. So another barrier that we wanted to talk about is the cooperation with the government, and as both experts and the participants of the focus groups were highly critical about their cooperation with the government. There was a lot of critics towards profile institutions, and when we asked the veterans, for example, what the Ministry of the Veterans does, they answered that they don't know, because they never met them. And here where we have seen some kind of separation in opinions is when we were doing the study about the local communities and local levels initiatives on the. When we asked about the veterans had said that they don't like the policy of Ukraine on the national level. However, they are satisfied with the policy on the local levels. Another problem that all the groups indicated is the problem that they get to know about different state or government programs from random sources and sometimes too late, or they need to deliberately search internet to find some kind of information about things that they are interested in. And as a bonus slide, another obstacle that we studied is the Russian-speaking Ukrainians. And we wanted to find out if this social group has any kind of correlation with all the other groups that we studied. This group, we have found out that they don't feel any kind of repression or persecution in any kind of activities. They did not have any complaints about how their social group is represented in the media. They said that there was almost no stereotype. Some of the respondents did admit that they had a biased or prejudiced image of them in the minds of their societies. And in general, they said that the society in general does not separate them as a social group from the other social groups. At the same time, the respondents told us that sometimes they come across the use of the Russian language in some kind of aggressive context, and this did happen sometimes. However, they also mentioned that this mostly happens in the social networks online. Also, about the position of the Ukrainian language, the view of Ukrainian language, it was assessed mostly normally positively, that Ukrainian language as a state language is not provoking any kind of negative reaction. However, there are some complaints about the freedom of using the language they want in everyday life, and this is about a tenth of the study that we conducted. So I invite you to visit our site. Thank you. It was really interesting to learn all of this, and I would like to ask for some kind of small conclusion. So because the first portion was kind of all hi-ho, it was optimistic. We trust to president. We trust to the armed forces, and one can have an impression that we are really united. However, in the second portion, there were some challenges that are before our societies, but they are kind of like were presented as kind of minor, for example, if you're not belonging, if you don't belong to some kind of social group, like veteran or a person with a disability. So what is our society like today? Well, we need to return here to the time when I started doing this study. It is really hard to make an assessment, put a grade on this on the situation in the social structure of Ukrainian society, and people, when especially considering the fact that when conducting such kinds of these kinds of studies, people are answering what they feel, and all in all, in general, as you can see, these numbers are showing that in general, our society is feeling sympathized with each other, and people are feeling support from each other. But when we are talking about these small social groups that are really important, however, that's where it's becoming a complex question. There is a lot of different steps need to be done in order to resolve these problems. I'm sorry, there is no short answer to your question, but in general, if we are talking about the average image, the existential threat that we are we find ourselves in, it's the war, the risks, those threats that we talked about in the first portion of our study, and the necessity to be united in the face of the danger that we are facing every day. We are not seeing a situation where it will be a threat that will go away. Thank you very much. The full version of this study is on the website of the OPORA and the team of the Media Center of Ukraine working on the schedule. Stay with us.